Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Codcast. Well, actually, the first episode of the 2025 Codcast. I'm your host, Matt Pajak. Today, very excited to bring on a very familiar face around the Cape Cod Baseball League, the field manager for the 2024 Cape League champion Harwich Mariners. He's been around the Cape League for over 20 years. Excited to pick his brain a little bit about that 2024 championship team, kind of how the season unfolded, the different dynamics that he's dealing with in terms of roster construction, and kind of how baseball's landscape has changed, in the 20 plus years that he's been in Harwich. I want to talk about some of the players, obviously that impacted the championship run. Some of the guys with draft implications, and then maybe get a sneak peek at what's coming right around the corner. 2025 Cape League season getting set to kick off here in June. Really excited. So without further ado, let's get field manager Steve Englert in here to talk about some Cape Cod Baseball League stuff. All right, there he is. Steve Englert, field manager for the Harwich Mariners, 2024 Cape League champions, third Cape League title as a field manager, first one in a while. We were just kind of talking off air before this, and we'll get into it. How much college baseball environment has changed, and really, between your last one and this one, it's kind of like winning in two different eras. But you've spent over a quarter century worth of summers in Harwich at this point. You kind of embody the spirit of the Cape Cod Baseball League. I mean, before we kind of get into anything else, you kind of look around, you, Kelly, Pick, kind of the last three guys that have really got some serious tenure on the Cape. I appreciate you taking the time today to hop on here. But just kind of, reflect a little bit. It's what, 28 years in Harwich total?
Yeah, around there. I lose track. I mean, it just flies by. It's incredible how time just goes. And, year in and year out. I mean, we're starting up. It seems like we just finished the season and we're starting up in a week or so. But, I thoroughly enjoy it. It's nowhere else you want to be if you're a baseball guy than coaching in the Cape in the summertime. I mean, you're playing every night. You have the best of the best. You mentioned Kelly and Pick. I developed relationships with those guys over the years, and they're great friends of mine. And competition, night in and night out. The biggest thing for me is like the people in Harwich and the relationships that have developed over the years, the people befriended, and our organization. It's just, it's such an enjoyable experience. They embraced my family and taken them into one of their, as one of their own. And it's great because I grew up in the area and a lot of my close friends and family are still there. And to see them come out to the game when, living in New York now, you don't get the chance to see them often, but, the Cape to get that opportunity to catch up on everything, and it's great seeing that. So that's part of the deal too, which is makes it most enjoyable.
Well, I'm sure it'll be nice for you to get out of that fast-paced Manhattan lifestyle. Slow it down a little bit in the summer.
Yeah, I get that little break. Growing up in Boston, and I always said that, how can anyone live in the city? But I think. I thoroughly enjoy it, but I say that we're having those 4 months down the Cape when I have that little downtime and that little break and get away from it all. I think I'd have a little bit different opinion of it if I had to stay here year round. But it is pretty cool living in the city. I think, as a bucket list, you should experience it just for 1 year living in the city and the hustle and bustle and what have you. But I look forward to that break in the summer every year, and it's such a blast.
All right, so we got to talk about it because if you're living in New York, you've got access to all kinds of different food.
Oh yeah.
What are you eating in New York and what are you looking forward to? It's
I'm a
kind of
big,
secondarily.
I'm a big steakhouse guy.
Yeah.
So there's tremendous influx of that stuff all over the city, Italian restaurants, what have you. But there's still everyone raves about the pizza and everything here in New York. It's good, but give me my Pleasant Cafe in Rosendale all day, and my Regina's in the North End. So I've yet to find those two pizza places that comparable to those two.
I'm with you. Regina's is my all-time favorite. So,
Yep.
And it's got to be the North End location. You can't have.
You got to have it in the North End.
That's it.
Got to have it in the North End.
Awesome. Well, if you're rolling into Harwich for one night, I'm sure there's people who are going to listen to this, whether it's scouting community or families or players or whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm.
If you're rolling into Harwich for one night for a game and you got to find somewhere to go and eat, where are you sending them?
Whew, you're going to get me in trouble. There's so many places there that help us out. It depends on what you're looking for. You want a little fancy upscale, you're trying to impress a date or anything, you take them over to the Wequassett Inn. You're going to pay a little bit, but it's definitely worth it. And it's like you're in a Caribbean island. Wequassett Inn, beautiful spot. I like bouncing around down in the Howard Center there. There's the port. The Hot Stove Saloon is a great watering hole. It's a baseball bar, and I love going in there. Embers, right around the corner there. That pizza joint, they have the big fire pit out front, which was awesome. So you just bought the Harwich. Since I've been there, has really exploded as far as availability of restaurants and nightlife and all of that, and it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool because when I first started there was like one little bar, and it had like 5 seats. The New Moon, which is now the Hot Stove, and that's really all it was. And George's Pizza's right there, which is a staple in Harwich for years and years. Been eating since I was 12 years old. George's Pizza. So, but there's a lot of great spots. Harwich is great now. It's really it's evolved.
I do love the Hot Stove. Is that still cash only?
Still cash only.
Still cash
Gotta
only.
love that old school stuff, man. It's great. It's great.
Yeah, make sure you bring your cash because
they have an ATM in there now, which is a smart move. But we frequent that place quite often. The Hot Stove Saloon. Great.
Well, that's good. Well, let's get into some baseball stuff. College baseball has changed so much, like I kind of alluded to earlier. But just in that, like, obviously the college season itself in the spring is pretty big, going from like January to this time of year. It kind of bleeds into the summer a little bit. They push the draft back into July, so that kind of muddies things a little bit in terms of where players are going in the summer. Some guys are trying to get last looks, whatever that might look like. And then there's this other component that a lot of people probably don't consider, which is just how much bigger the fall schedule has gotten on campus. And the demands for the players in the fall that weren't there to the same extent a couple of years ago as well. So just in terms of like being able to get players to the Cape and then to get players to stay, through the beginning of August, given that at this point, being a college baseball player is a 12-month ordeal.
Yeah.
What are your interactions like with players, getting them here, keeping them here? The Cape was always romanticized as, you come here, you get a summer job, and then you play ball at night and you go to the beach, and, things have changed a lot. So, maybe you can reflect a little bit on some of those changes and kind of some of the challenges of building a roster now for the Cape season.
It's, the Cape is still viewed throughout, all of college baseball as the spot to be for the summer. Because I think it'll always be the best amateur baseball league based on the travel and based on the premier destination for summer vacation. And, so we go to Brewster. It's 5 minutes. If you play the game, you go home, you go get something to eat, you sleep in your same bed every single night. The travel is really it's comparable to anywhere else. It's way better, much better. Sleeping in the same bed, but it's always the competition that it presents. You know, you're getting the best of the best, and the scouts are always flocking there to see it. So you have an opportunity to play in front of 30 Major League Baseball organizations each and every single night. And those guys, it's pretty easy on them too because of the travel. They can cover every 10 teams in a week, and it's without crazy travel. So you can go see a game at 5 o'clock and then bounce over and catch, a game at 6:30 or 7. So it's still easy to get kids to come. Everybody wants to come to the Cape, and the recruiting aspect is probably the most taxing because everyone's chasing the same guys. You have to try to find the right guy that is going to grind it out for the entire summer. Some guys are just going to come up there and their agents start getting involved and say, hey, it's mid-July. You don't need to prove anything else. Try to honor the commitment. So you really have to be careful on who you select. And over the years, I've developed relationships with coaches, and coaching in the Big East and the ACC and all of these other leagues. You get to know these different coaches, and they know what type of player that you're looking for. You don't have to necessarily be the top flight best guy. You just want a kid that's going to go out and compete each and every night. And to me, the biggest thing in writing a lineup is the trust factor. So I'm going to put a kid's name in the lineup, and I know exactly what I'm getting out of that kid for 9 innings. So if you can get a whole bunch of those kids, then you're going to have them stay the rest of the summer because they have that type of character in them, and the makeup, and the game is important to them. And you try to throw different scenarios to them. It's the last opportunity before it almost becomes like a business. It's the best summer you'll ever have. Moving forward, you got minor league baseball. You're not going to develop relationships with teammates. I mean, you got kids from all over the world that you're going to be teammates. You can't even communicate with them. They don't even speak the language. And here it is. All these guys have something in common. They're all in school. They're all chasing the same dream. And I think that if you can get that over to them and build it up, I mean, it's only 8 weeks. Suck it up. Just finish out, honor the commitment, and you get into the playoffs. I mean, last year's playoffs was unbelievable. We had 6,000-7,000 people at the playoff games. It was tremendous. So yeah, I think
you're over here saying suck it up. You're never more than 10 minutes away from a beach.
Yeah, I mean, come on. It's like, it's where else would you rather be? Sitting at home on your couch? Come on, man. It's like you're playing baseball every single night, playing against the best in the country, playing in front of all of these guys, and it's great. And I tell everybody, I said, if you think of leaving early, you're going to regret it. You'll regret it. It'll be 2 weeks from now, and you're sitting on your couch. You're like, shit, I wish I was up in the Cape. And it's happened several times with kids that, left early, and they call me like, Coach, you were right. I should have stuck that out. So those are the kids you appreciate the most that come up there and honor the commitment. I have an understanding of what the league is all about. And, hopefully you get kids that stay out for the entire summer.
Yeah, and I think there's kind of another element to it where, and I've communicated this to a number of players that I know either at the high school or the college level, like you've got to try and find development environments where you can go that are more low pressure, I guess you could say. If you're playing in the SEC and you boot 2 balls at shortstop in the first inning, like you're out of that game. And I think really, like when you look at competitive high school baseball and you look at where we're at with the college game, like everywhere is a high pressure environment.
Right.
And these kids, like there's a lot of kids that just need to go and they need to get reps and they need to get opportunities to kind of work through some of that stuff. And I think that's the beauty of summer ball. I've always been a huge advocate for summer ball. But I don't think kids appreciate that enough, that there are these places that they can go where it's like, look, at the end of the day, if I'm coaching at a mid-major, if I'm coaching at, LSU or whatever it is, like if we're not winning ball games, then I'm about to lose my job. Right. And, I've been saying it, outside of summer ball and for college baseball, the only other environment really where you can go and you can work through some of that stuff and you can really develop and they'll stick with you and you'll be in the lineup night over night is the low levels of minor league baseball.
Right.
And I think
so the way we treat it, and when these kids come up here, and I said, look, you've been, and I've been through it myself, being in Division I. It's a grind. It's an absolute grind of a season. You get your classroom, community service, lifting, and it's nonstop. And you come up, and it's almost like try to treat it like a pro ball atmosphere. Now, it bothers me when they say, "Oh, it's only summer ball," but it's not only summer ball. It's an elite league, okay? And it's a fine line. You anytime that you keep score, and there's a scoreboard or anything, you want to win. There's no doubt. You're not in the game if you don't want to win, and it bothers me when I lose. It really does. But I'm not going to risk winning or losing at the expense of a player's development. So if that makes sense. So I'm not going to, if a kid's pitching well, as soon as, he's dominating the game, I'm going to take him out after 80 pitches, 85. If he's at school, if I'm at school, we're running that kid out for another 2 or 3 innings. But to me, that's it. You've done your job. You've showcased your talent. You got these scouts on the radar on the scouts. Bang. So that's the way I treat it. And I said, but don't take it where, have that type of mentality. Oh, it's summer ball. It's more laid back. But this is what we tell them. I treat it like it's Little League. Okay, when you show up every single day and just have a blast. Really enjoy the game. Okay, so try to get away from that high pressured atmosphere of the college, especially the SEC, those Power 4 conferences. They're constant pressure to win, like you said. But you make sure you come in every single night and compete. You got to have that compete level, or you're going to get exposed. So our big goal is to show up every day on time. Okay, strive to get better every single day. Just try to get a tick better every single day. And if you do that, getting a tick better every single day over an 8-week period, you'll go back to your school in the fall and you'll be a monster. And, just play hard. Go out and run ground balls out. And I always try to say, play as if someone's got eyes on you. And they do. And it's the truth because someone's watching you. They want to see how you handle adversity. If you're 0 for 3 and you hit a little topper, to shortstop and you don't, that's an opportunity for you to get a time down the line. So you just blew that opportunity if you just, you get frustrated with that. Division I with the ACC, Big East, Colonial, what have you. And you get to know coaches and they know what type of play that you have. So you kind of build there's building blocks that you have. You go-to guys, go-to schools that know exactly the type of play you're looking for. You don't really need that, top flight guy, just the guy that's going to come up and grind. And they know a lot of the schools that we do choose from, they make them stay the summer. So he's committed to you right now, you should honor the commitment. So we've had pretty good fortune over the years. I mean, you do have kids that leave early. There's injuries, but some kids just say they've had enough, and that's disturbing to me because, what do you think is going to happen next year when you're playing pro ball? Come July, and I say, hey, St. Louis Cardinals, I'm out. I'm tired. You got to learn how to suck it up. You got to learn how to grind because it's a grind.
Yeah, people say it all the time. It's a grind. It's a literal grind.
It is
100%. For 365. So, all right. Well, let's get into the 2024 team. a little unassuming at first, especially given the regular season. And I mean, I feel like the Cape just kind of has a way of doing that where it's not always the best regular season
that was
team.
kind of that was a whirlwind last summer. We got off to a pretty good start, and we were in first place there, believe it or not, in June there. And but then the portal comes into effect. Guys going in the portal, so your pitchers, boom, they one more start, we're shutting them down. So now you're in total scramble mode, trying to find arms at that stage of the season. It's extremely difficult. Then we had a couple injuries, which it happens every year. It happens to everybody, but they just happened to be two of our top guys, and we went on a major skid. I've never experienced any. I mean, we lost 10 in a row. That's almost impossible to do, and it was. But I'll tell you what, the group I had, the chemistry, and the makeup on these kids, it was like they every day show up. It was like they didn't know we lost 6, 7 in a row. Just like, all right, let's get one today. And it was a really good group of guys. I honestly, when you go on skids like that, your season's just about done. But we kept plugging away, and we got into a situation where there was 8 games left in the season, and we were in last place. I said, we got 8 left. Let's finish as strong as we can and see what happens. And I said, if we can just get into the playoffs, I think we can do some damage because of the makeup and the personality and the way these kids competed night in and night out. So it was one of the most impressive things that I've seen, and I'm not just exaggerating or embellishing here, is we did not run out a ground ball. It was unbelievable. I mean, in the mid-July, we were 5-6 games skid, and we were getting stomped. Kid hit a ground ball back to the pitcher. He had a 4 flat down the line. I said, that's 3 innings later, we're out of the game. We're down 8 or something. Kid hit a base hit to left, hard turn, no Cadillac single. And I'm sitting there saying to myself, I go, if we could just find a way, I said, we'll outgrind everybody. And we ended up winning 6 of our last 8. We made some moves. We moved some starting pitchers into the pen, moved some pen guys who were on innings caps, and we weren't using them because we were getting beat every day. And I'm like, we can't use our back end guys. I mean, one kid had 6 innings, and he was one of our best arms. And I said, let's start him. He was on like 20, 25 inning cap. And we were kind of just trying to manage his workload. And I said, you know what? There's only a couple weeks left. Let's just start him. And that kind of flipped everything. And, we ended up winning 6 of our last 8, and we got in. And, the rest is history. It was quite a ride. It was taxing, going through that. But like I said, you try to get better every single day. Try to strive to get a tick better every single day. And they did that. I mean, the work ethic was always there. Everyone showed up early to get their, every day's in and get their fundamentals, stay on top of that. And that was the most impressive thing about everything. The way we go, you never get to practice in the summer. And it is a developmental league, and just playing in the league itself is going to get you better. But sometimes the fundamentals get pushed aside. So about 12 or so years ago, I started asking guys, I go, let's just practice for 20 minutes before we take BP at home. Not too taxing, just do some fundamental stuff, ground ball work. We'll do individual defense, maybe do PFP. So we started doing that. And usually when you get towards the later stage of the summer, especially if you're, on bad street there, the kids kind of half-ass it, and it's kind of just busy work. But not with this group. They just, every day, boom, show up, a lot of energy. And, I had the juice going during the 20-minute. Sometimes we'd have optional hitting. Every kid would show up. So it was a special group. And I enjoyed going to the park every day. I really did, even though we were, in a bad state there. But You end up turning it around at the right time. That's what the Cape will do. Just war of attrition, outgrind everybody.
Well, that's part of the reason why baseball plays so many games is that you can have those skids, and if
Yeah. Yep.
the foundation's good and all the ingredients are good, eventually the results flip. And it's the same thing with 162. You look at a guy who starts, look at a guy in the big leagues right now, Corbin Carroll, his first half last year versus second half, and then it ends up over 162. It comes together. It's a pretty darn good season.
Yep.
So anyway, it's really, really kind of interesting that there was a 10-game losing streak in the middle.
Well, we had 10, then we won 2, then we lost 7. So we were 2-17 in the month of July. I'm like, what is going on? But, we were losing games like, 1, 2, just stupid ways to lose games. And I said, that's the game. The game will beat you up like that. It's crazy. It's crazy. And it ended up turning, which was fantastic.
All right, talk a little bit more about navigating the pitching staff. So you talked about couldn't really use some of our best arms because weren't getting to those positions in the game where we could.
Yeah, the days of like the Tim Lincecums and those guys, it's over. Any power 4 or Friday night guy that accumulates all those innings over the course of the spring, they're getting shut down. They're all getting shut down, and rightfully so. I mean, today's day and age, you have to win college baseball, and there's a lot of money involved in it, and guys have to pay their mortgages, so you can see that. So I basically don't even go after those guys anymore. I just give me the middle relievers or the back end guys, and maybe a sprinkling of starters that are from mid-tier programs and what have you. But the power 4 weekend starters, you have to stay away because you're not going to get them. And if you do get them, they're like, oh, coming up for 2 or 3 starts, and then we're going to go home. But that's all well and good. But what happens after those 3 weeks? Now we're in July, and now we got to go find another guy. So we try to get a commitment, and I always honor whatever it is that the school's coaches requests as far as capping that innings. So we manage the workload so they stay right around that innings limit. We go 6-man rotation. I know some other teams go 5, but so if you're a Friday guy, you stay on Fridays, and that way your innings don't creep up there. We usually pull guys right at 85 pitches, even if you're throwing a no-hitter. Instead, if you want to throw a no-hitter, do it in 85 pitches. I'll come up and fight you on the mound.
There you go.
But you're coming out. It's not worth it. You did it. You just pitch 5-6 innings. You've done your job. They don't need to see anything else. So we carry 16 or 17 arms because you are playing 6 days a week. So that way it's not too taxing. And but yeah, now the other wrinkle that comes into play is the portal, and which is crazy. Guys will come up and they'll jump in the portal, and they'll have like 30 or 40 innings under their belt, and they'll sign on with their new school, and the new school will come in and say, no, we're shutting you down. You come on back home to campus. We got a lot of things to take care of. So that's a pain in the butt. And, they want to go on visits to schools right during the season. I said, it's extremely disruptive, but you always want the best for the kids and their opportunities and what have you. But the portal is kind of wreaking havoc on summer baseball.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. Just kind of what I've heard past couple of years is that there's a lot of college coaches that are spending more time on the Cape than they are recruiting high school players.
Yeah. Those guys, they're battle tested. There's no question. You have the high school kid that's still a question mark. You don't know what you're getting out of him. Whereas this kid, you can go up and see him. He's competing against Division I players. He's competing against basically men, as opposed to the high school kid that's 16, 17-year-old kids. You got a kid that's in the portal. He's competing against a 20, 21-year-old. So.
Well, I said I was out at the ACC tournament the other day, and there was a lineup that had 5 or 6 grad transfers in it.
Oh yeah. Yep, that's the state of college baseball, and it's kind of disheartening in a way where, and I was talking to someone the other day about this. When I coached at BC for 13 years, and the relationships you develop with those kids for 3 and 4 years, it lasts a lifetime. To this day, I still stay in touch with those guys. And, they'll come to New York and they're like, hey, I come in town, let's go out and get a beer or something like that. And now it's, okay, I'm going to show up for a year. If I'm not playing, I'm out. There's no developmental stages anymore, which it's a shame. And then you don't get to, build that bond, that relationship with the actual player. Like a lot of those kids, I know they've moved on and, have families. I mean, our GM down the Cape with Harwich, Kevin Bogan, he played for me when I was at BC. And you don't get that anymore. It's kind of it's kind of troubling. You miss that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, you go and you look, and a lot of these guys, that are getting drafted and whatever, they're juniors in college. You go look, they've been at 2-3 different schools already.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And it's almost like you turn into a junior college. It's like you're one and done, the old Kentucky basketball. You spend all this time developing kids, and they have a good year, and then it's like, all right, I'm jumping ship.
Yep. Man.
It's kind of in Manhattan, we had 28 guys go in the portal last year, so we had to build a whole new team. It's crazy. It works out in some ways, in other ways it doesn't. So I mean, I don't know what the answer is. I know sometimes that you get calls from coaches and you want kids to come up and they're afraid they're going to go in the portal and they don't want to send them out. But then on the flip side of that is if like, oh, you're denying me an opportunity to go to the Cape, I'm going to go in the portal. So it's
a double-edged sword.
Yeah, it's crazy the way the state of college baseball today.
Yeah, but it's at a point where it's past like a simple fix. So it's just kind of like, right. Hey, if you're involved,
I don't know the answer.
You're involved at some level, you just kind of have to adapt to it.
I know.
I want to talk about Wilson Weber.
But I think it's getting out of control. What's that?
I want to talk about Wilson Weber.
Wilson Weber, the Spider-Man.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, that was a huge pickup for us. So Mitch came in Oregon State. He called me and said, I have this kid. He's lifting now. He's just waiting in the wings. And I said, just sit tight. Something could develop here and I'll get him out. And Oregon State kids play hard. They're grinders, tough kids. And Mitch is always spot on with his evals, and he knows the type of guy that we want. But we brought him in mid-July, and the kid, he fit right in as far as sometimes kids are a little standoffish. And I mean, his personality and makeup, he fit right in with this crew that we had. I mean, he was a huge part of our run down the stretch. I mean, he was like a breath of fresh air. He gave us a little injection in our offense and handling the pitching staff, and just a super kid.
Well, that's just kind of the beauty of it, right? And
no doubt.
Like we kind of said, you go through this tough stretch in July, and you guys are off to a good start in June. The roster looks way different at the end of July and August. You're moving into the playoffs, and it's kind of that team that gets hot. It's the things you were talking about. It's the gritty teams that show up and they do the right things every day. And those are kind of the teams that when you get into that postseason action, like anybody can do it,
Right. Just got to get
so I mean, between him and Aden Hill, it seemed to be like an on-base machine.
And Webb with 2 huge pickups, 3 huge pickups for us.
Yeah.
And they just solidified the roster when they came in, and they knew how we played the game and our approach. They run ground balls out, and the first guy shows up, like, who's going to be the first guy that doesn't run out of ground ball? That's what we throw it out there. Like, hey, it's not going to be me. So it was great. Those guys came in and competed, and they gave us a little jolt in the offense, and we got hot down the stretch, and that's what you're basically looking to do.
Yeah, and it's crazy for all the changes that have happened in college baseball, and we've talked about all of them, for the most part here, is you get into that Cape playoffs, and it still has the essence of the Cape playoffs, no matter whether it's 2024 or whether it's 2012 or whether it's 1997, right? Like close out the Cape League Championship Series with a kid from UMass Lowell.
That to me is like the best story of the summer. So we had a couple of injuries with our arms. We had a couple of kids that jumped in the portal and got shut down. So we had to get through 54 innings in a week. So I don't know if I can do it. I'm not going to go overextend kids just to do that. So I called up my buddy who Jimmy Mulry, who coaches a team in the Boston Park League, which is the oldest amateur baseball league in the country. And I said, hey, I need guys. I need them down here like now just to eat innings. I don't, just give me guys that can throw strikes. So he goes, hey, I got this kid. He's at UMass Lowell. Spring was just okay. As the ERA was like a 10 or something. I said, if he could throw strikes, just throw him. So I called the kid and I said, you interested in coming down the Cape? And he said, yeah, I'd love to. It's been my dream to play. He's a Dorchester kid. He went to Boston Latin. He's from Boston, so he understands what the Cape's all about. He grew up in the area. And then he goes, can you hold on 1 second, Coach? And I hear him yelling. He goes, hey, Ma, can I miss Tommy's wedding tomorrow? I got a chance to go to the Cape. I said, she's there. You go to the Cape. And I'm like, oh, my, this kid, he's already turning into my favorite player. And he gets back on the phone. I go, you have a wedding tomorrow? He goes, yeah, I'm in my cousin's wedding. I said, listen, you don't have to come down tomorrow. Just go to the wedding, have fun. So the kid comes down. He's pitching in the Boston Park League. His dad's a Boston cop. And he comes down and kind of easing him into it. And then he's just dominating. And I said, who the heck is this kid? We put him on the back end. He closed out some huge games for us down the stretch. I mean, he pitched the final game, the championship inning, and struck out 2. And we ended up dogpiling. But the kid comes from the Boston Park League, doesn't let up a run the rest of the summer. He comes down in July. And what a story that was. Kid's tremendous.
Yeah, it looks like the Cape. It smells like the Cape. It is the Cape.
Yep.
Yeah, I gotta say his name. Was it Kevin Zarnoch?
Down, and his dad's there. I'm more nervous watching this game than I'm going on a gun call in Boston. But I was so happy for him. He was so excited, and the family, and that's what it is all about. That's what you enjoy the most. That's like better than winning, just seeing something like that, and it's great. That to me was the best story of the summer.
That's awesome. Well, I do want to talk about a couple of your, I guess, higher profile names from this past summer, and just, I don't know, give me your thoughts on it. Sure. Coming up on the draft here in a month and a half, these guys are going to hear the names called. First one's Danny Dickinson, who was a Utah Valley kid. Mm-hmm. The Cape was a little bit of like a transition for him because he was committed to LSU once he hopped in the portal. And going from Utah Valley to LSU, that's a big jump. Yep. Yeah, obviously the Cape does a pretty good job of helping bridge that gap. But he hit 205 for you, but he did get on base at a 350 clip. So maybe the underlying stuff was a little bit better than maybe the surface level stuff. Stole 9 bags. Talk a little bit about your experience with Danny.
So Danny, Utah State kid, Utah Valley. I think, coming from that, smaller school, mid-tier program, his numbers were tremendous. But I think he came up and he's kind of standoffish or, hesitant. He's like, do I fit in this league? Can I do it? Can I play at this level? And there was a little bit of false bravado there. I mean, he was playing well early on. And then there's a lot of circumstances that I think that his numbers would have been a lot better had he just come in day one, settled down. So he gets invited to Team USA. He goes to Team USA. He's in the portal. He's got all these schools, contacting him. The NIL money's coming into play. So the kid's, he's 19, 20 years old. And that's a lot to handle. And you're trying to play in the best, compete at a high level in the best amateur baseball league in the country. You're going back and forth here and there. There was a little issue with handling adversity early on. Came back from USA, little different attitude and what have you. But then all of a sudden it flipped. And I think the kid matured overnight. And I think he figured it out and he grew up. And he was tremendous for us down the stretch. I mean, he came out, I threw him at shortstop. He was playing tremendous defensively. Came up with some big hits, some big, productive outs, stole some bags. He was really into it too. And he was competitive. The compete level was there down the stretch. And here's a kid, hitting 200, USA, got his money, went to LSU. He could have just shut it right down. Could have shut it down and gone home. He didn't. He embraced the grind the rest of the summer, and he ended up, being a big part of that championship. I was so proud of the kid, and I pulled him aside and I told him that. And I'm glad he's having success. And I think, I did tell him, I said, if you continue to do what you did in the last 2-3 weeks of the season, the sky's the limit for you. And he's doing well at LSU. I'm so happy for him that he settled in there nice. And, he's a kid. Just it takes a little bit, of failure to figure it out. And he grew up. He grew up over, through the course of the summer. And that's one of the benefits of playing in the Cape. You're going through all of that adversity. And if you figure out how to handle it, you grow up and then now you're on the correct path to where you want to be as far as your baseball career is. And he did that. I was extremely proud of him.
Yeah, it was great to see because, it's a mixed bag. Guys go to the Team USA stuff and they either come back or most of them shut it down. And he, he came back and he ended up at the bottom of the dog pile. So
right.
Pretty good summer for him.
Yep. Good for him. Good for that kid.
Yeah. The other one I want to talk about is a Northeast kid at Northeastern. One of the funnest programs in the country this year. Where they go?
Oh yeah. He does a tremendous job.
Yeah, I mean they're heading down to Tallahassee. They got Florida State, Mississippi State in a regional. I mean, don't sleep on the Huskies.
Yeah, Huskies are hot, man. Don't touch them; they're on fire.
The Huskies are hot. So anyway, he hits for power. He steals bags for you. He had a huge spring at Northeastern. He'll hear his name called at some point in the first 10 rounds of the draft. I mean, what do you got on Cam Maldonado?
Yeah, although he's a stud. So he had a monster freshman year, and I obviously am going to take. I'm close friends with Glab. I worked for him for a few years, and he was a slam dunk. Signed him in the fall, but then the spring. Sometimes those trying to live up to those expectations that you had in freshman year, and try to improve on that, and you're chasing those numbers that can hurt you a little bit. And I think that probably, had a little bit of effect on him. They figured they had to put up better numbers rather than just going out and competing. And there was talk that, it might not be a good situation for him to play in the Cape, to try to, right the ship. I mean, it's a tough thing to get back on track to play in the Cape because you're facing the best of the best. But he ended up towards the end of his spring last year getting better. And so we took him in, and he got off to a slow start and numbers wise, and you could see it was there. I mean, he's a toolsy kid, and it was there. And early on, he had some really loud outs, and he wasn't, the numbers didn't show any production. And I think that was bothering him. And I had to pull him aside. It was a constant conversation. And I said, listen, you can't worry about end result. Don't, look at your stats or anything. You're trying to develop here and get better every day. Once the ball leaves the bat, there's nothing you can do about it. So it took a little bit for him to get used to, and then it just clicked with him. And he just went out and just started playing. And he forgot about the numbers and everything. He just went out and competed. And it looked like he was enjoying playing baseball. The first few weeks, it didn't look like it was. But then all of a sudden, he just started enjoying himself. And you could tell. And you could tell with his production. And he was huge for us down the stretch. And I think that out of all the guys, I think he's probably the one that probably be the highest draft pick. He'll be the guy. It's all there. He can run. He can steal bases. He's a plus outfielder. He's got power. Good bat to ball skills, hand eye. It's all there. And he's a great kid. He's very coachable, and great teammate. Great teammate. So it's all there, and check all those boxes off. But yeah, I was extremely happy for him. And I told Blab, I go, this kid's ready to have a monster season for you. And I'm so glad that those numbers are out there. And I think he's worked his way into a pretty good draft.
Yeah, it'll be exciting to see here. He'll follow. What was it, Mike Sirota? Yeah, Sirota. Northeastern.
You always have guys. I'm telling you.
Always have guys.
Yep.
All right, give me an arm and a position player that impressed you this past summer. You don't have to go too far in the weeds, but just other teams.
The past summer, but a couple arms. I mean, Mitrovich kid from Elon. We didn't really use him as a starter. I mean, that's where he's more effective. He kind of struggled out of the pen, but we had to kind of manage his innings. Then when we flipped him to the starter, he kind of thrived. He was impressive. The kid Ryan DeSanto, the lefty, really pitchability kid. He was a kid that he doesn't wow you to death with his stuff, but he's old school pitchability kid. You look up, you're in the sixth inning, it's 1-0. Soft contact all day.
Yep.
Those two guys, they stood out, and they had pretty good years for us last time. And I think they'll be pretty good drafts, those two kids.
Anybody else on the track with any of the other 9 teams that you were on a field with them and you were like, that guy?
For other teams?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can go through. Like in July, there was some guys that did some serious damage against us. The kid Petry, he was like Babe Ruth, first base of South Carolina. Every ball that he put on his bat just ended up in the street. But we ended up figuring it out in the playoffs, though.
Yeah.
This one that stand out. There were a couple arms in Kelly had at Orleans that were tremendous. Kid from Harvard, and then the kid from Hawaii there. He was I forget their names. To struggle enough with remembering all the names of my guys.
No, I know.
Those kids stood out. But every team's got players. They're all, every team that comes out and rolls out dudes. It's just that's what's fun about it. It's like, oh man, we got to face this kid again, and night in and night out.
Well, that's kind of the nature of it. Is that like everybody who follows college baseball, they know the Power 4 guys. They know the guys that are in the top 25. And kind of this last thing I want to get into is a little bit sneak peek for this 2025 season coming up. And you gave me 2 names, Macon Winslow from Duke returning, and then also Aiden Robbins. And I didn't know who Aiden Robbins was. So I look him up. He hit over 400 at Seton Hall.
We picked him up
when
last
struck
year.
out.
Yeah, I mean, the numbers, they're like video game numbers, Aiden. He's he helped us out. He was one of our pickups last year that really, jumped in. But those 2 kids returning, Olin Johnson's returning from last year. He ended up really, developing into a pretty good arm. He didn't have, his innings were limited, as a freshman. He came in and performed well. And then the kid that we're not going to get him, Blake Morningstar was another kid. He's supposed to be coming back, but his innings are right up there. Talk about a kid that used the kid to, jump right into a starting role in a weekend for Wake Forest. I mean, his number, he had a great spring. He's their Friday guy. He'll probably be a USA guy. But if he doesn't go to USA, I think they'll probably shut him down. But he vaulted right into used the Cape as a springboard to really get himself going for, Wake Forest. And I'm sure that kid's going to be a pretty good drag. I mean, he could be a big leaguer, I think.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a great last name, too. Big league last name.
Yeah, he's a great kid, too. Great kid. But
Well, cool.
every year everyone tries to tell you who's the guy, and you like to think that everyone's a guy.
Well, yeah, and it's going to be the guy that you least expect that's going to come up there, and
yes,
because there's so much college baseball that that ESPN Plus has done a good job of getting all this college baseball visible for us, but there's still so much we don't see.
It's all those sleepers. You get your high profile guys. I'm kind of steering away from that and just give me the grind. It's like, for example, a kid, Jake Ogden. He was at UNC Greensboro, and a buddy of mine, a scout, loved the kid. Was in his area, and he said, just take him as a temp. And we ended up taking him as a temp, and the kid settled in. He's just starting every day at third base. He makes the AllStar team, transfers to Miami. And this is what I know. I, played third base, and they had the Cuvée kid there played for Brewster. And I said, "What, you going to Miami?" I said, "See that kid right there? That's Cuvée. He's like 6'2". He's it's like passes the eye test and everything. I mean, he's big league." And I said, "That's the kid that you got to try to beat out." I said, "Where the heck do you think you're gonna beat that kid up?" So I was just, giving him. I could give him, jabs like that, just jokingly. He wouldn't take it to heart because he knows my personality, and that was the relationship we had. Right. So sure enough, he sticks it in my face. He goes out and starts every day at shortstop in Miami. It's like he's leading the team hitting, and now he's worked himself into a pretty good draft. So, those are the stories that no one knows about, and you get these guys at first rounders and everything. But to me, that is more enjoyable seeing stories like that.
Well, and it happens every year, and it doesn't just happen in Harwich. It happens with the other 9. It's like, go to the Cape, get your opportunities that you didn't have in the spring, become a better player, and then it could change your career.
Right. No doubt. There's a ton of those stories.
Awesome. Well, Steve, I appreciate the time. Best of luck. I'm sure some people are going to love to listen to this one. It's fun digging in on this stuff.
Yeah, it's great. I love talking about these kids that that you enjoyed having in the summer. Boy. That's the one thing that I always say, that I love coaching the Cape, and it's the best job. But one downfall is you only get to coach these kids for one summer in most instances.
Yeah.
And that's it. It's over, and it ends like abruptly. It's like it's no leading up to it. It's like boom, season's over. And you're with these kids grinding it out for 8-9 weeks, and all of a sudden it just ends. Especially when you get a good group. You get a great crew, and you miss them. Like a couple of days after we went, I'm like, I miss the guys. I wish we were out. We had one more game.
Yeah.
Then there's other summers you get kids a jackass. I'm glad it's over. But when you get special kids and a special team, it's fun. It's a blast, no doubt.
Well, awesome. This has been awesome. Episode 1, Codcast 2025 season. Maybe we'll have Steve back on another month or so for something.
Sure.
All right. Thanks,
Whatever
Coach.
you need.